Welcome to Paint and Sip again. This is our 101st Paint and Sip, which is very exciting. Today we are going to be painting this fun little, it reminds me of like the beginning scenes of The Wizard of Oz where it's all in sepia tone and not in Technicolor yet. It's like a hay field, and we're going to be doing a monochromatic painting today, which means we're only using one color. And it's really good exercise to get used to for kind of practicing value, which means what colors are light and what colors are dark and kind of where they're arranged on the paper. So it's going to be a little bit more of a technical painting today, but we're going to get through it and kind of just do all of these things in sections. So don't worry too much about, the whole thing. We're just going to do it step by step, okay? And this is not the last time you'll see this. I'm going to go over this in a second. My materials before we get started, just because people always ask, my watercolor paper is Fluid 100 cold press, 100% cotton watercolor paper. It is 6 by 8 inches, 140 pounds. I think that's all the information people usually ask for. This paper is linked in my Amazon storefront in my link tree, so if you want to check this paper out or any other paper that I like, you can go there. And it's a watercolor block, which means the paper is glued together on the long sides. So I don't need to tape it down. That glue keeps it in place, and then at the end of the painting, I can just remove it from the block. I'm going to be using my Artistro watercolor set today, which is the one I helped design. That's my name on the front right there, and you can buy it, and so that's really cool. We designed this late last year, early this year, and it is meant to be kind of professional quality, but not so expensive like professional watercolors, and the pans are huge. So I really do highly recommend this palette if you're wanting to check out a new watercolor palette. The quality of the paint is just A+. I don't use it a ton in my live streams, like I said before, just because it's huge, and so it's hard to kind of keep in this frame, but we're only using one color today, so I think it should be okay. So make sure you check that out. The link for this is also in my bio. It's on Amazon. And then my brushes, let's see, we can use one of the Artistro brushes. I'll probably supplement that with a bigger brush and a detail brush. So I've got a 1/2 inch oval here, I've got a detail brush here, and kind of a medium-sized brush here. So yeah, grab a medium, large, and a small, and that should do you just fine. Okay, so let's talk about the reference photo just really quickly. The reference photo I got from a site called Unsplash, which is a royalty-free website for photography. And so I get a lot of my reference photos from there, which is very helpful because I don't have everywhere on my phone. So the reference photo originally looks like this. It is a full color photo. Still kind of basic 1 or 2 colors in here, not super chromatic, but it is in color. And for this demonstration that I did in my sketchbook, I changed this reference photo to black and white. And that just kind of makes it easier to judge the values of all the different sections, because it's hard to see which values are actually the same when it's in full color like this. So if I remember, I'm going to link this reference photo in my the YouTube video, and I'm uploading this later, so you can check this out. And then if not, you're welcome to screenshot it here. If you would like, I'll hold it up right now so you can screenshot it. And we are going to go ahead and tackle this kind of step by step. So we're going to go from the sky to the first layer on the landscape, and then add in those little hay bales there, and then the trees and stuff are going to be last. So go ahead and screenshot that. You get another couple seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So again, we're only using one color today. You can pick what color. I'm going to use brown to get this kind of sepia-toned Wizard of Oz prequel kind of tone to it. But you can choose whatever color you want. You could choose black, you could do blue, you could do red or yellow if you want a bigger challenge. So feel free to challenge yourself there, or just use brown if you want to. Okay, so I'm gonna move this off to the side. That's not the last time you'll see that. We'll bring that back in a second. Okay. Let's do our first step, which is to put a little water in the singular color that we're going to be using today. So that's the burnt umber color that I have in my palette here. And actually for the rest of the painting, I'm going to move this off to the side because you know which color I'm going into, and we'll just have the mixing palette showing. Okay, so now that that water is dissolving in that paint pan, we're going to start with our sketch. And I'll zoom you in a little bit here. Okay, so really all we need to do for this landscape is figure out our horizon line, and then we're going to sketch in the hay bales as well. The horizon line is about halfway up the paper. You can go a little above or a little below halfway if you'd like, but I'm just going to go pretty much almost exactly halfway. give it a mostly straight line going across to show us where the sky meets the landscape there. If you'd like to add a very small mountain range kind of in the distance there, you can with a wavy line or just slightly more uneven line just above that horizon line there. And then we're going to add the hay bales. So some of these, because they're kind of facing a certain way, just look like circles in the distance. So maybe right here, I'll put in a circle. Some of them kind of look like squares because they're facing the opposite direction. So maybe I'll put one here. Squares with kind of rounded tops and bottoms. So that's where the roll side is not facing towards us. And then there are some that are kind of diagonal. So you've got the circle, and then you've got like a shadow of that circle, like a crescent kind of on the other side. I didn't do that very well. Let me do that one again. Don't overthink this too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. So there's the crescent, and then you go just over a little bit and do another crescent just like that. And feel free to add as many as you want. I would recommend 5 to 7 or so, not too many. You can kind of experiment with like a partial turn, so it's got like an oval, and then a little bit more of like of the side showing like that. This one needs to be closer, I think, just because it's so big. So I'll move that one down a little bit. So add as many or as few as you want. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. I like to just kind of vary the sizes of them a little bit. Something like that. Okay. So once you're ready with your hay bales, maybe I'll add one more here. We are going to go ahead and get started on the sky section. And before we do this, I do just want to say, this painting is for fun. We're all just here to experiment and have a good time. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to make a perfect painting in this 1 hour that we're painting together. I hope you learned something. I hope you, enjoy yourself and take an hour to yourself and some self-care, but I hope you just don't expect yourself to make a perfect painting because it's very hard to do so in an hour. So just be kind to yourself, be kind to others in the chat, and be nice to me, and we will all have a good time together. And yeah, this live will also be uploaded to my YouTube channel afterwards if you miss any of this. All right, so let's get started. Let's get a little bit of our brown color, or whatever color you're using, onto our palette here. And I'm going to make a fairly watery concentration right now. So I'm going to add some paint and some water. Something like this. And we are going to be doing a wet on wet technique for the sky here today, which means we are going to put a layer of water down in this top section, everything above the horizon line, and then we're going to drop in this color here, and we might actually, let's mix one more concentrate section, everything above the horizon line, and then we're going to drop in this color here, and we might actually, let's mix one more concentration of brown, just a little bit more concentrated than the other one. So I'm just adding a little more paint and a little less water in a separate section of my palette there. Okay. Now for this this sky section, I should say, I do have to do all of these steps kind of in quick succession because if the paint dries, I can no longer do what I want to do. So I'm going to give you these instructions kind of as I'm doing it. You can just watch me at first and then you can catch up after I'm done painting, or you can paint along with me either way. But I do just kind of have to do these couple of steps in quick succession just because of the paint drying. So I'm starting with a large brush and I'm putting a layer of water down from my cup onto everything above the horizon line. So I'm bringing this water all the way down to that first pencil line that we drew, and then filling in everything else. And I like to kind of tilt my head in different directions so I can see the light reflecting off of the paper, and it helps me to see if I've missed any spots or if any spots are like drying really quickly. You can also tilt your paper and get that water spread out a little bit better. Okay. And then when you're ready, I'm going to use my slightly smaller brush, my Artistro brush here. I'm going to go into that lighter concentration of brown and just start creating some like loose cloud shapes. So I'm just kind of making dots and clustering them together in cloud shapes. Kind of all of them are going to point towards this spot kind of on my paper here. That'll be the sun, where the sun is. So all of the cloud shapes are kind of pointing towards right here on my paper where my finger is. So again, just kind of creating these cloud shapes here, leaving some white spots on the paper. Don't overthink, just kind of do. And then once you've got your basic shapes down, what you can do is pick up your paper and tilt it gently in different directions. This will help all of that paint blend together with the white of the paper. So I'm just kind of tilting it in a slow circle. If you taped your paper down to the table, you can do this with a clean, damp brush. It won't look quite as smooth, but you'll still get a similar effect. I do need to fill in this bit right here. There we go. And then once those shapes are pretty well blended in, pretty smooth like this, I'm going to set my paper down flat, and that will stop the blending. And then as that starts to dry, we can go into that second, more concentrated paint here. My paint is disappearing into a big mess. Don't worry, we're gonna rescue it. We're going into that more concentrated brown here, and we're just gonna add a little bit more definition here. So this is where you can kind of bring those cloud shapes back out if you've lost them. And this one we're gonna let just kind of dissolve onto the paper. We're not gonna tilt our paper unless you want to. If you want to, go ahead. So I'm kind of concentrating these where there's already some of that brown before, just to kind of add the definition there, some little spots. Okay. And then the last step, should you choose to accept it, is to use a completely dry brush. So I'm going to squeeze it between my paper towel there, and you can use that to further define some of these cloud shapes. So I'm using that dry brush. It's picking up the paint on the paper here, and you can use that to create some highlights on the clouds and also kind of further define them a little bit. Okay, so that's all the steps for you. I know that was quite a few in quick succession, like I said, but hopefully all of that kind of runs together and makes sense. Again, you're putting down a layer of water onto the whole paper, starting with that lighter brown, putting down some cloud shapes, blending those a little bit, and then adding in some of that darker brown as a little bit more detail. And then you can use your dry brush as a little bit more detail. And then you can use your dry brush to refine it if you want. And as long as it's dry, you can keep messing with it. You can kind of add some more clouds down here if you want to add some little streaky clouds. These are all just options for you. If you're already overwhelmed, don't worry about what I'm talking about right now. You can just kind of keep adding clouds. You can keep refining this until it starts to dry. That's when you have to kind of call it quits and be okay with whatever it looks like. I use too much water. So for that, if you do end up using a little too much water, you can tilt your paper in a certain direction and use a paper towel to collect what ends up in the corner there. That is an option for you. You can also, that kind of stuff just takes a little practice to get used to. You'll know how much water to use next time. All right, since I'm starting to risk overworking it here, I'm going to leave it alone. And we are going to go ahead and move on to our next step. So let me know where you're at if you are painting with me. If you need another minute or two, I will let you have that and just do my little spiel. If not, and you're ready to move on, then we will go ahead and move on. So just let me know in the comments real quick. Caught up. Good, good, good. Still drying. That's okay. It can be still wet. We're not going to paint on top of it for a bit, so it can still be wet. That's okay. I just mean if you're done painting, let me know. Good to continue. Ready, ready. Okay. Seeing mostly ready, so we will go ahead and move on. So our next step is going to be filling in the bottom section with our first layer of paint. So let's go back to our reference photo here. We have kind of a, if you can see the values here, it's much lighter towards the back of this field here than it is at the front. So we're going to do a bit of an ombre effect or a gradient on the first layer, and then we're going to start to add in a little bit of this texture of the sort of rows of hay here. And just remember where the vanishing point is. So all of these rows are leading to this same spot on the paper, which is about right here. So just remember that. Think of where your vanishing point is going to be on your page, and then all of our detail that we're about to add needs to point to that spot, which is right about here, okay? So let's get some paint ready again. We're going to use very similar colors that we just used for the sky. The values are very much the same. So a watered down version here. And then a more concentrated version. And then we're going to add one more concentration, which is even more than the first two. So more paint, less water. So you should have a light, medium, and a dark. Okay, so go ahead and do that. I'm going to take a sip of my Spindrift. And then we will go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do is start with that lightest color at the horizon line with our big brush, and then we're going to transition into that medium color as we get towards the bottom of the page. And then we're going to use that most concentrated color to add a little bit of the detail that we're going to start seeing in this field here. So you can see the reference after this step. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So I'm going to start with that lighter color using my big brush. And I'm just going to use horizontal brush strokes here, starting up here, going right over all of those hay bales. We do not need to pay attention to them right now. I'm going to fill in about a third to a half of this bottom section here, something like that, and then just switch over to that slightly higher concentration brown and fill in the rest. Those colors should blend together pretty well. There we go. Again, horizontal brush strokes, you'll get the minimum of texture that way. And then we can use a slightly smaller brush and quickly, before that dries, go into our more concentrated brown and start creating some lines that go towards that horizon line or that vanishing point that I talked about. So I'm just going to start here, start making some lines. And they're just all pointing towards this spot on my paper. And as long as your page is still wet, these details should kind of start to diffuse and spread out a little bit. And it won't be super detailed right now, and that's cool, that's okay. Okay, so something like that. Once your page starts to dry, just leave it alone. You'll end up doing more damage if you just try to continue painting on it while it dries. And if you want to, you can use a completely dry brush again and kind of pick up a little bit of the paint in between those darker lines that we just drew. I'm just kind of using a tapping motion, and this will give you some preliminary highlights. So drying off my brush, and then tapping away some of the highlights there. Mine doesn't look very good. We're in the ugly stage right now. You got to just power through. I promise it'll end up looking better than you think. And also, it's not really, like I said in the beginning, that's not really the point of today. We are just here to have fun, hopefully learn something. Your painting does not have to look good. Okay, so once that starts to dry, just leave it alone. And we will pause here for a second as you guys catch up. Let me see if I missed any questions here. Very happy this one I chose to paint. Good. Yes, make sure you catch it on my YouTube later. All right, so as we're just kind of pausing here, you can finish up those details. I do just have a few little, my plugs that I usually do, which you guys are my captive audience, so you're going to sit through them. If you want to support me, I am a full-time artist. Hello, nice to meet you. And if you'd like to support me, which is always very helpful because I need to pay my bills, you can check out the link tree in my bio. When you first go there, you will find 5 symbols at the very top of the link tree. And those are, the first one on the left is YouTube. It's the little YouTube symbol. So if you click on that, it'll take you right to my YouTube channel. It is also Hannah Art and Prints, so you can find it that way too. And then all of the paint and sips that I've uploaded are there. All of the other videos that I like to post are on there. So make sure you subscribe, throw those on if you're cleaning or something like that. Give me some watch hours. That's always very helpful. The second little symbol that you'll see at the top of the link tree is my PayPal symbol. So it's a little $sign. If you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, that is always super, super appreciated. Any amount that you feel comfortable with is totally fine. You could do that through that symbol. It'll take you right to my PayPal. And then if you scroll down, you will see, first of all, the link to my watercolor book, Watercolor Wanderlust, which came out in April, and I'm very, very proud of it. And if you enjoy these painting sessions, or if you have someone in your life who would enjoy these painting sessions for the holidays, this book is where you need to go. It's got 24 landscape painting lessons, just like these paint and sips, but you get to do it at your own pace, kind of in book form. So make sure you check that out. It would make a great gift for anybody who's interested in watercolor painting for the holidays. So if you already have one, you can get another one for somebody else. So the first link in my link tree will take you right to where you can buy this book. It's available anywhere you can buy books. So whatever is your favorite purveyor of books, you can check it out there. And people seem to really be liking it. So I appreciate everybody who has supported it so far. You will also find the link to this watercolor palette that I'm using today. I helped design it with Artistro. That is the third link in the link tree, and it's available on Amazon. So if you also, this would also make a great gift. It is professional quality watercolor paints, but not the professional prices. It is a little more expensive than usual kind of beginner art sets that you'd find, but it'll last you forever, and you'll get much better results than you will with like a beginner set. So would highly recommend it. You can see all the colors here. I'll just show you those in the palette. You get 24 colors. I hand picked out every color. Love it so much. You can also check out, the last thing I'll say, you can also check out my Etsy shop. I have all of my art that I sell, prints, bookmarks, postcards, original paintings, all of that stuff. And I do just want to put a little extra, attention on my 2025 calendar, which is now out. So if you want a little desk calendar, each month has a art print that you can then cut out to make a 5x5 print after the month is over. So you can cut off the days and then you get a little 5x5 print by itself. So you can save those. This is a great gift for the holidays. I would highly recommend checking it out. There's always a limited supply every year. So make sure you grab one if you're interested. They also come with a little easel stand or a gold magnet clip for the refrigerator. So you get a little display option with it too, which is nice. There's also a bunch of other stuff in my Etsy shop, but I just wanted to shout out my calendar because I always love making it every year. So those are the 3 things that I'm going to highlight for now. If in general you want to support me, just check out the link tree and you can do it in many different ways. So it would mean a lot to me if you support me in whatever way you want to. And thank you very much for your support if you have already. Okay, back to our painting here. Thank you for listening to my ads. We are going to start filling in some details here. So the first detail we're going to fill in is the distant mountains there. So let's get kind of a medium concentration, probably about the same as what we did for these kind of rows of grass, the darker color that we used. Maybe a little watered down, but pretty similar. Can you get a paint refill for your palette? I have both your palette and your book. Love them. Thank you so much. Right now, you cannot get a paint refill. I've been asking Artistro to figure that out, and it's a little hard with like the manufacturing process. So believe me, I have been bugging them about it. So I hope that at some point that is a possibility, but not right now. Okay, so with that color here, we're just going to fill in, flat wash this distant mountain range here. So this is where you can kind of finalize your horizon line and figure out that little mountain range in the distance there. I'm not going to make very sharp peaks. It's just going to be kind of a wavy line. Are you using a reference photo? Yes, I am. Oh yeah, I forgot I need to show it again. I'll show it again in a second. And if you're watching on YouTube later, it is linked in the description of this video. There we go. And then we can just let that dry. And while you're finishing that up, I will show the reference photo one more time. Here we are. So we've just did this little like distant tree line or mountain range, whatever you want it to be in the distance there that kind of caps the, I like to have something that kind of breaks up the horizon line. I feel like sometimes it looks messy just having like one thing go into the sky. I don't know. So we just did that. And now we are going to start adding some more solid detail to the foreground here, adding some shadows and stuff to the hay bales. And then last we are going to add those trees in the distance there. Can we refill the pots that are empty in your palette with regular liquid Artistro watercolor paints? I don't know if Artistro has liquid watercolor. Do they? I haven't seen it on their website, but they might. You could refill it with any paint brand if it's empty. You could just get a different paint brand and refill a certain color if you want to, if Artistro doesn't have liquid watercolors. All right. So let's go ahead and do some details on these hay bales here. So we're going to, again, just use the same, pretty much same color that we just used for, well, a little watered down, a little more watered down. And I'm going to use a detail brush now. So I've switched to my smallest brush. It's a little 000 round, very small. And we can just start filling in some of these shadows. So for the ones where the round side is facing us, the round side is in shadow. So I'm just going to start filling in those circles here. And then underneath these hay bales, you can add a little horizontal line. It's like a little shadow, like that. Zoom that in a little bit there. Okay, so again, this one in the distance here. And then a little horizontal line underneath, a little shadow. Okay, then when we get to here, where you can kind of see some of the side of the hay bale, I'm going to do the same thing, add a little bit of a shadow to the round side. And then for the curved side, I'm going to add a slightly darker color to the very bottom here. It's okay if it blends into what you just painted. Bring that up. And then just use clear water to kind of paint the top. Something like that. Oh, geez. Okay. Yikes. All right. And then again, we can add just a little tiny shadow underneath. Also, thank you all for the likes. We're up to 8.7 thousand, which I appreciate. Can hot block Mr. Nothing. I already did it, don't worry. I'm quick to the draw on the blocks. Okay, so again for here, round side, same color. And then a slightly darker version for this section underneath. That goes up to about halfway. And then I just use a clean, damp brush, bring that color the rest of the way up. Maybe leave a little highlight on the top. Sorry, I'm new. Is this paint? Coffee? It's paint. It does kind of look like coffee, doesn't it? We're going for a sepia tone today. Okay. And if your colors are kind of running together, if you're not getting the detail that you want, don't worry. We can always go back over this later with more detail. So for the ones that have the kind of rolled side facing us instead of the round side, I guess the curved side, I don't know. We're just gonna do darker color on the bottom half, and then blending that out to nothing on the top half. And you can even, if you want to get extra fancy, use a clean damp brush and kind of scrub the paint that's on the very top of this hay bale that you're trying to paint here. Again, with a clean damp brush, scrub it for a few seconds, and then use a paper towel and dab that away. And if you do that a couple times, you will end up with a little bit of a highlight up there. You can see that kind of starting to form. So scrubbing for a few seconds with that clean damp brush, and then dabbing with a paper towel. And I'm using that for this one where I've kind of painted some dark paint over it, and I want to just bring back that highlight there. Okay, and then I lost my shadow in that process, so I'm just going to paint that again. Would you rather paint oceans or mountains? Oh my god. You know, that's really hard because I love painting both. I would say oceans right now. I'm really in a water phase with my paintings right now. Just kind of obsessed with figuring out how to paint water. So I'd probably say that, but mountains are very relaxing for me to paint. I feel like I've kind of gotten my system down. And so it kind of depends on what mood I'm in, but generally probably ocean right now. Good question. There we go. And for underneath these, again, we can just add a little bit of a shadow, just to kind of ground them in the earth there. And I'm just going to go back and kind of repaint the shadows on these ones because they just kind of got blended into what I was doing. So now they should look more 3D. Should look kind of like that. Starting to kind of make sense in the context of the painting. What paper would you recommend for a beginner? I would recommend some good paper. And I know that depends on your budget, so it just kind of depends on where you're at with that. But this paper that I'm using right now is not very expensive. This is Fluid 100. Cotton watercolor paper. This is what the front looks like. It's not very expensive and it's good. I would not recommend going for like the very cheapest watercolor paper you can find, just because you're not going to like how it looks. No matter how good of a painting you make, it's just not going to be that good because the paper is shit. So would recommend, if you have the budget, some slightly more expensive paper. If it says 100% cotton, that's usually a good sign. Something along those lines. Okay, so let's start adding in the texture of this hayfield. We are going to use a technique that I've been using a ton recently, which is kind of a dry brushing technique. So I'm using a slightly larger detail brush, but it's still a detail brush, and a slightly more concentrated brown color, so adding more paint. And I'm going to take off a lot of the paint on my paper towel. So I've got a pretty dry brush now. And in these grooves that we already painted in the kind of darker sections, I'm just going to use the flat side of my brush, so almost parallel to the paper. And I'm just going to start flicking upwards with my brush. And if you zoom in here, there we go, you'll see that this creates kind of a very natural looking, kind of rough, grassy texture. And we're just going to put that in the grooves of the hayfield here. So instead of having to paint every single, thing of grass like this, which you certainly can do, you just use the side of your brush and use that upward scraping motion. And you'll at least get some texture that you can then kind of build on with some more like careful detail strokes. Like this. So again, I'm using my detail brush, putting it into that slightly more concentrated brown, taking off some of that paint onto my paper towel, so it's a pretty dry brush. And then I'm using the kind of the side of the paintbrush to scrape the paint onto the paper. And I'm kind of concentrating this in those darker areas that I already have on my paper. So hopefully that makes sense. Please let me know if it doesn't. And then on top of that texture, whenever you're ready to do so, you can add some very thin, very delicate kind of grass strokes there. And that will kind of bring all of that texture together. So I'm just using a very light touch and adding some like traditional grass strokes on top. Is everyone sipping while they paint? That's a good question. I've got a spindrift. I'm obsessed with sparkling water recently. Can't put it away. Paint water, obviously. That's an option too. I have never actually taken a sip of paint water, but I have come close. Normally what happens is I put my paintbrush in the thing that I'm drinking. I think that happens to me more often. Okay, and we're just going to continue this kind of throughout the bottom of this page here. Remember that as you get towards the top, towards the horizon line, you want to kind of fade out that detail. You want to see more detail in the foreground here at the bottom of the painting and less as you go up towards the horizon line. That'll just kind of show the distance in the painting. And as we're doing this, this gets a little bit repetitive, so I will just go over my shameless plugs one more time. If you want to support me in any way, that is always super helpful. I am a full-time artist, and I depend on lovely people like you supporting me in various ways. So if you go to the link in my bio, it's a link tree. You will find, first of all, 5 little symbols at the top of the link tree. First one on the left will be the YouTube symbol, and that will take you directly to my YouTube channel. I am posting on YouTube more so these days, just because I want to spread out my social media presence a little bit. And I'm posting these TikTok live sessions along with some other kind of more, pre-recorded, edited videos. So if you want to check out this paint and sip afterwards, that is where you'll find it on my YouTube channel. It'll be uploaded later today. And so if you missed anything, or if you want to go over some stuff again, or try this painting again, or try some of the previous paintings that we've done, you can check all of those out there. There's a little playlist that you can find. So make sure you check that out, subscribe, throw on a painting or two while you clean the house, whatever, just get me some watch hours, There's also in that little group of symbols at the top of the link tree, a little $ symbol that will take you directly to my PayPal. If you would like to leave me a tip or a gift for today's session, that is always super, super helpful. Usually people leave like $5, $10, something like that. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. So if you'd like to leave me a little tip, that is always appreciated. Never required, but always very much appreciated. Makes my day. And makes me understand that you guys do enjoy these sessions. And then if you'd like to kind of scroll down in there, you will find the link tree for my book, Watercolor Wanderlust, which just came out in April. So it's been out for 7 months now, and people have really seem to be liking it. I'm really getting lovely feedback on it, which I very much appreciate. And if you'd like to learn kind of these painting lessons in a book form, it is 24 landscape painting lessons. So it'll teach you how to paint 24 different landscapes with little skills that you can kind of pick up and use in your own paintings afterwards. So that would be a lovely little gift for yourself, or since the holidays are coming up, a great gift for, you know, someone in your life who maybe likes to paint or wants to learn how to paint, anything like that. And then the last thing I'll plug in the link tree is my Etsy shop. Again, art makes a great gift for the holidays, so if you're starting to think about your holiday gifts, make sure you check that out. I talked about my art calendar earlier, which is out now. There's always limited numbers of those, so make sure you check those out. It's a 2025 art calendar. Be a great little stocking stuffer for friends or family. And it gives you also 12 little 5x5 prints too. So make sure you check out the Etsy shop. I've got lots of little bookmarks, postcards, things of all different price points. So if you're just looking for like a small gift for someone and you don't want to spend more than like $10 on it, I've got plenty of stuff for under $10 in my Etsy shop that you could find, and that would make a great gift. So make sure you check that out. If you don't feel like you can support me financially yet, that is okay. Just liking my videos, commenting, watching everything till the end. Like I said, putting on a YouTube video of mine while you're cleaning the house or just kind of working or something, always very, very helpful. Yeah. And as always, I very much appreciate any way that you guys choose to support me. I would not have the job that I have, and it's my dream job, believe me, without people like you supporting me. So thank you, and I very much appreciate you all being here. She taught me more than watercolor classes. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Are you in Washington? I am not, but I grew up in Washington, and my family still lives there, so I go home fairly frequently. I currently live in Ohio, which is a bit of a change from Washington, but yeah, I grew up in Western Washington. So a lot of my art is inspired by the Pacific Northwest, because that's where I take a lot of my photos. Okay, so you can see as I'm getting up toward the horizon line here, I am fading out this detail. I'm still adding a little bit just to kind of fade it out there, but mostly we're just kind of stopping a little bit underneath the horizon line there. Do we have any questions before we move on? Again, I haven't said this yet, but if you haven't quite gotten to adding that texture in all of the rows of your painting, don't worry, you can always go back and do that. There's no more instructions that I have for you on that, so feel free to just take a pause in that for a second, and we're gonna go ahead and do these trees. Let's see, we're in Ohio, I'm in Cincy. I am also in Cincinnati. I don't want to give too much away about where I live, but it is in Cincinnati. You're actually very inspiring that I've decided to go studying to change my profession. I'm so proud of you. That's wonderful. I am a huge advocate for people to take risks and do something unconventional with their life that will actually make them happy. That's a big thing for me, because I see a lot of people just kind of doing a job and not taking a risk because they're scared. And listen, I have some safety nets. I'm not I'm not just on my own, but it is really, really rewarding to do what you're actually passionate about and what you're put on this earth to do. Okay, so now that we have gone to almost everything we've kind of covered, we're going to do these trees in the background here. So once again, if you'd like to screenshot this just to see those kind of shapes of the trees, you can. And then we will just kind of do this big one and kind of work from right to left. So go ahead and grab that if you want it. 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to go ahead and get our strongest concentration yet of brown. So I'm just going to get a little water, really dig into that paint pan here, and get that onto my palette. So you can see, you just have this kind of firm texture of the paint. It just doesn't spread out that much. You can kind of see the pan underneath. That's what you want, because this is our darkest spot. So let's just start adding some trees. I like to use kind of a loose brush stroke here with my detail brush. Sorry for the rapid zooming. I'm just kind of using a rough texture to start creating these leaf shapes and start kind of filling in the shape of this tree. So I'm painting the outside of the tree right now, just kind of figuring out what the outline wants to look like. And then I will fill in the interior. And I like to leave some spaces where you can see through the tree. I don't like to fill it in just completely without some little spaces that you can see through. You've got some kind of weird branches sticking out. Don't be afraid to kind of make it look rough and, you know, not perfect on the outside. That's what will make it look more realistic. You can also add like the trunk in there too, which you won't really be able to see too much of once we actually fill this all in with paint, but you'll see a little bit kind of a ghost of it, I guess. So there's that, and then you can just kind of keep filling that in. You're using the side of your brush. I'm using kind of the corner, not really the side this time, not as much as I did down here in this texture down here. It's kind of the corner of the brush. That gives me the most like texture compared to like the very top of the brush. Okay, and we're bringing leaves all the way down to the horizon line here. So you see how you can still kind of see the ghost of that trunk that we painted through there. There we go. Okay. Lovely. Perfect. Now we can move on to some smaller trees. These will be less detailed. They're just going to be kind of cotton ball shapes, but we're still going to use kind of that rough texture. And just wherever you want to add one. I just like to make sure the outline is really rough and kind of scraggly. I feel like that makes the most realistic looking tree. Bring that down here. You can add the trunk. That. Feel free to just add as many as you want. On the horizon line back here, we can do a few that are kind of clustered together. So there's one, there's a smaller one, and maybe one or two more right here. And draw in their trunks. Thank you for all the little TikTok gifts as well. I appreciate it. Okay, maybe we get a slightly bigger one over here. I love the trees. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank you for the support as well. All right, and I think I'm just gonna add one more at the very end of the page here. This is not in the reference photo, but I just feel like it could use one more just to get the balance. What color are you using? So I used burnt umber for this entire painting, just one color. Monochromatic painting for today. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a look at kind of the painting as a whole compared to my reference photo and see if I need to kind of adjust the values. So I think the sky looks good. I think I need a little bit darker paint here, and I think some of the shadows on the hay bales need to be a little darker as well. So that's when you can kind of use the black and white photo to compare what you've done already to what it should be. And this is kind of why the value studies are a good tool to use. It really helps you kind of see where you are missing some shadows and where you need a little bit more contrast. I have a habit of making my paintings too light for sure. So this is a good kind of reminder for me that like these shadows need to be darker, and the shadows in between the grass kind of at the very foreground need to be darker. So again, I hope you, if you screenshotted that reference photo in the beginning, you can use that, or you can check it out in the description of the YouTube video. And you can kind of, and I believe I will only be able to link the full color version, but it's pretty easy to change. I believe in all of you to change a photo to black and white on your phones or on your computer. Okay, and then you did an excellent job. Thank you so much. Yep, this will be posted on YouTube just a little later today, just as soon as YouTube or TikTok lets me download it and YouTube lets me upload it. Usually takes a little while. Okay, and then I can use some slightly darker brown and just kind of really define the shadows in here. Using that same texture and just using that really dark brown that we were using before. Yep, this whole lesson will be on YouTube just a little later today, like I said. So I am going to probably wrap this up pretty quick here. I hope you enjoyed painting with me today. If you painted, if you just watched, I hope you enjoyed watching. And if you did paint along with me, I would love to see your paintings. We usually do a little bit of an art gallery on my Instagram after these sessions, so if you did paint along with me and you feel comfortable sharing your painting publicly, feel free to post it on Instagram and tag me. Same handle for me as TikTok on Instagram, and I will repost it on my story, and we'll get a little art gallery going in my Instagram story. And if you don't feel comfortable posting it publicly, you can just send it to me in a DM, and I always check my DMs. I don't necessarily respond to all of them because I get a lot, but I do always look at them, so feel free to send me your painting. I'd love to see it. Again, same handle on Instagram as TikTok, Hannah MP with the 3 H's. And if you choose to support me as well through anywhere in the link tree, again, if you'd like to leave me a tip or a gift, that little $ at the top of the link tree will take you to my PayPal. That's the easiest way. Tips are always super appreciated. And then make sure you check out the YouTube channel, my book, my Etsy shop, this palette on Amazon if you want a new watercolor palette. And if you are watching on YouTube later, all of these links are in the description of the video. You don't have to go hunting for them. All right, I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Just add maybe a little more over here, but kind of fade this out. I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like that final little shadow kind of darkening really helps a lot with the realism of the painting. I do need to add a little bit more over here. There we go. Okay, perfect. And I will go ahead and remove this from the watercolor block so you can see how I do that. So you can see on the sides here, let me zoom you out a little bit. You can see on the sides here, the paint or the paper is not bound to itself, but on the bottom it is. It's glued together. So I just take a little palette knife. You could use a butter knife if you don't have a palette knife. This has some gunk on it though. Let's just make sure that's not going to rub off on my paper. So anyway, you can use a butter knife if you don't have a palette knife, that's fine. And I'm just going to slide it between the page that we just painted and the next one, and just use it to carefully break the glue. My YouTube name is Hannah MP. It's also linked in my link tree. So I just slide that through and break the glue. And then I do the same thing on the other side. Carefully and gently so as not to rip the paper. And then I do usually end up with a little bit of glue on both sides of the paper. So after the live session is over, you can either peel it off, or I usually use an X-Acto knife to just cut that off so that there's no glue on the paper. All right, and then you have a nice little blank page for the rest. You don't let it dry first. It's pretty much dry. Everything that I was doing before, like in the last few steps, has been really thick watercolor paint, which dries really fast. So everything is touch dry. And so I was able to take it off. So again, I really hope you enjoyed this painting with me today. It was nice to be back with you guys painting, doing paint and sip. I will likely be back next weekend because I will be out of town the week after. So if you'd like to join me again, you can come back for paint and sip next Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, same time as always. And again, if you'd like to support me, make sure you check out my Linktree YouTube channel. YouTube channel's in there. Sorry, I have to verify that I'm still alive. YouTube channel is there. PayPal link is there, the little $. If you'd like to leave me a tip for today, you can check out my watercolor book links and my Etsy shop and this watercolor palette from Artistro that I helped design. All of those things will make great holiday gifts as well. So if you're looking for some holiday gift inspo and you want to get ahead of it, make sure you check those out. And as always, thank you so much for painting with me. I very much appreciate it.